I will call the meeting of the Conway Selectboard to order for February 1st meeting. First item on the agenda, we have minutes listed here, but we're going to table those because they need further review. Next item is meetings attended by Select Board members. Bob or Jim?
I have been meeting with on a weekly and bi-weekly basis with the firefighters, putting together this package together for the replacement of that fire truck. We've had some real good discussions. We've had some companies that have offered to supply trucks, some companies that have not offered to supply trucks. We've narrowed it all down. The last meeting we had, we are trying to keep it down as low a dollar as possible, but yet maintain your service that that truck has to give us. And we hopefully will be back to you people probably in a couple of weeks with a somewhat of a figure as to where we stand, which looks like, I mean, we've gone up. One quote was over $538,000, and we're looking in the vicinity range of trying to get $100,000 off of that. It's huge money. So my guys have been working really hard at that, and
Great.
And I look forward to their results. So, and I understand the Capital Planning Committee would like to meet with us sometime in the near future to discuss it.
Yeah. Okay. Jim?
Yeah, I went to the informational meeting at Frontier, not particularly about the pipeline, but about the problems with fracking and these are two PhDs and a doctor, and the chemicals being used in the fracking process, that some of them are carcinogenic, and they cause a lot for people within 2 to 6 miles, as far as 6 miles away even, respiratory problems and headaches, things like that. But it was an interesting informational meeting, and of course whatever's in the pipeline, when the compressor station releases pressure and the blowdowns release pressure, whatever's in the pipeline comes with it. And it's especially serious at night because the air is heavier, and if it's not a windy time, it settles in low places. And he said if you live in a valley, which the town is right here, and we're downwind basically from the blowdown, it can be a serious problem, especially for children and people who may have already have some health issues. But it was an interesting meeting.
Interesting. Okay. This week I attended, or actually last week I attended the Franklin Regional Council of Governments Finance Committee meeting and the council meeting. And the budget was voted on, and we should be getting numbers from them very shortly on that. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, any citizens' concerns? Okay, we have no citizens here, so I guess we don't have any citizens' concerns. Tom, fiscal 2017 budget?
Yes. Glad to hear we're going to get the COG figures soon. I'm hoping to get kind of a not to exceed figure from the school so I can go ahead and work on the budget that I'll present that is a starting point. And this year I am going to use the levy limit as a top end, so it's going to be very much in the black. But that's also kind of a notice that pretty soon we're going to be bumping up against that levy limit, and life will not be as unless we can manage to increase our free cash substantially, which is kind of difficult to do once you've cut everybody down. So that again, it used to be the natural governor for our capital spending, along with the capital stabilization fund. I do hope to get a not to exceed figure from both the grammar school and the Frontier over the next week or so. probably the meeting before the special town meeting is not the best one to introduce that and talk about that, but I'll hope to have that prepared by the following one.
Okay.
Also, I have, speaking of that, I had originally scheduled Don Jacobs to come on this date, and now we're having the special town meeting on this date. So I will work to change that too, because we wouldn't want to have him explain the whole human resource process and all of that, and with that kind of pressure,
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
that kind of time pressure. So I'll make a note about that. I am expecting increases in both those, partly because of increases in healthcare. I know the schools, at least the grammar school here, uses the Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust, which we know is going up 6.8%.
Right.
So we can expect that at least through the Conway Grammar School. I'm not sure who Frontier uses, but that's.
You heard anything from Franklin County Tech?
No. Waiting for that as well. I haven't heard a peep. I'm gonna make a note to get in touch with them. We will have an extra student attending Smith Voc. It won't change the tuition budget for what we have, because we have 2 people there this year, and one of them is graduating, but we have another one coming in. But both students now will need transportation, which is about $16,000 a year. So that line item will be going up about $16,000. And neither one of them will be able to drive for a year or 2. So
Okay.
there's that. And I have a kind of a special item, which I would like your consideration of. This is proposing adding a little bit to my budget and the highway budget in order to reorganize the building maintenance function. I mentioned something about it a little bit earlier, and this is a little précis of what that would be. I've been doing building maintenance and, trying to get some things, in order from my perspective. But I think it deserves more attention, especially since Capital Improvements Planning Committee is going to be looking at long-term capital needs. We'll have to do a little bit more maintenance around that as well, I expect. I note that before it came to me, it had been in the highway department, as it is typically related to a more general DPW function.
Sure.
And the highway superintendent agrees that the function fits better in that department. But a number of the duties are clerical, processing invoices, scheduling appointments, and tracking service being some of the usual tasks. And those are things that could be done on a clerical basis. Based on my experience, no more than 3 hours a week for that. But that would be 3 hours on top of the current 3.5 hours of clerical support the department now receives, which I will point out is a very basic level of support.
Sure.
The cost for that would be $2,340 over the year and annually. For an 8-hour position, which means that another hour and a half could be spent on highway department activities, which I think if we were going to change things, we might as well make things the way they really ought to be. 5 hours a week on highway. The additional cost would be $3,510 as opposed to $2,300. Additional clerical work for the highway department would include preparing highway invoices for the superintendent's review, tracking expenses for each vehicle in order to calculate the lifetime cost, answering routine correspondence, developing and maintaining a bridge and road inventory. That includes the work that's done on the road, so that we have a record of an ongoing spreadsheet of what work is being done where, when. and providing web updates regarding progress and plans on various projects and winter roads. Where specialized knowledge is needed or at times when immediate action is necessary and clerical help was not available, the highway superintendent as supervisor would perform those tasks. The highway supervisor was given to understand that the previous superintendent received an extra $1 an hour for taking on this responsibility, and I believe some vacation time as well. For the current superintendent, the dollar cost would mean an additional $2,075 per year. So to move the building maintenance function to the highway department with these considerations, the total additional cost would be $4,415 for 3 extra clerical hours, and that's not 8 extra, that's 8 total, sorry, or $5,585 for 8 total clerical hours. Currently, the assistant to the town administrator works 16 hours for the town administrator, as their maximum number of hours without costing the town benefit money is 19 1/2. She is at her maximum while working for the highway department for 3.5 hours. If she were to work 3 1/2 additional hours for the town administrator, she could assist in budget preparation, follow-up, prepare warrants for routine expenses, improve the website, further assist committees, and eliminate the current 2 business day delay because she's out Fridays completely and Mondays during the day in responding to requests from the town administrator, other town staff, committee chairs, licensees, scholarship applicants, and general members of the public. The additional cost for that would be $2,730. So the total cost of a full reorganization, which includes adding some hours that are now not being worked, would be $7,145 for the shorter highway department hours and $8,315 for 8 highway department hours. So there's a preliminary subtotal for just the highway department, and then for that further proposal to have her work her maximum, up to her maximum hours in this office is the bottom line there.
Okay.
I wanted to put that forward because, of course, we are looking at the budget for next year.
Sure.
And I've been wanting to move that building maintenance function over. And I've had several discussions with the highway superintendent as to what that would take. And he brought up the history of the position. And so I put some numbers to it, and I put that forward to you for your discussion and consideration here.
Okay. Good. All right. Thanks, Tom.
Are we going to discuss that later, or?
Well, what do you think? You want to discuss it now? Or do you
I don't
want
care.
time to consider
We
it?
do have to have discussions about it, I think.
Yeah.
We do
Okay.
have to have discussions, I think, about both the highway, increase of the highway superintendents and the increase of the administrative secretary.
Okay, well, my question is, do you want to have time to think about this over the next week, or do you want to discuss it now?
It doesn't matter to me, John.
I don't know, I think it'd be good to think about it.
Okay.
Read over the proposal
Okay.
more carefully and think about it. Is that okay with you, or do you think
As
we
long
ought
as
to
I don't
go-
have the school numbers, I can't put out a budget.
Anyway.
One question that came to mind, right at the very, very beginning with me is, why was that taken out of the highway superintendent's requirements when he was hired? When it always was in there before.
Well, that was before my time.
I had that for years, it's part of my job description. And when they hired a new superintendent, you people evidently somebody took it out of the requirements.
I don't know.
My understanding is that that was an agreement that Rick came to with Ron based on the amount of salary they wanted to give Ron at the time. And that was a discussion between those two people. And Rick said, well, we can move that function over to the town administrator. And
Well,
I've been dealing with it since I got here.
What they were paying me when I left, for what they started a new superintendent off, was quite a bit more a year, with a lot less responsibilities. That's what I wondered about. What was that all about? took some responsibilities away and gave
Well-
him a big pay raise.
Well, I think part of it is because he also is one of the working crew. You know, you were the supervisor, but he is the supervisor and part of the working crew.
I was too. I plowed snow, I had a regular route and everything else.
Oh,
Worked
okay.
on the roads in the summertime with them when I could.
Yeah.
All right, let's investigate that situation further, and next week we'll talk about the numbers.
And this was based on, I think, when Bob took on building maintenance much earlier,
Yep.
was given that $1 an hour
an extra
additional
week's
pay
pay.
and an extra week's
Vacation
vacation.
pay.
So,
Because I took it over from your position, which was a lady that sat in your seat back then, and they were paying her $1 an hour more per week to do it. When
So-
she got through, left the position, they came to me and asked me if I would do it for that. And I said, well, I would if you include another week's paid vacation, because I said, the paid vacation doesn't cost you nothing,
right.
because
Right.
I'm
Well,
working
our,
for 52 weeks a year now. I'm not.
Yeah.
Our,
So it really didn't cost them any more for that extra week's paid vacation, other than,
Yeah.
so the transfer of funds was directly across the board, dollar for dollar.
So this cost, this dollar cost is based on an extra $1 an hour for our current highway supervisor, and of course, pay does go up over time and all that. I don't think this reflects anything on earlier rates of pay, but using that same figure, which was fine with the highway superintendent, that's what this that's what the $2,075.
I do know that we definitely need to have somebody that's available, living in town, that can address situations that pop up on the weekends.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that's
You know,
true.
and that's always when they happen, it seems like.
Of course.
Yeah,
It's never convenient.
Yeah,
Oh,
never.
You never know, so.
All right, we'll look at the numbers again next week on that. All right, Tom, you got human resources study initial findings.
Yeah, we are almost ready to have Don come in and give you his take on the picture. You got something of an update last time with some of the work so far, and some information about where those salary ranges, you know, he's come up with ranges for 6 different grades based on levels of responsibility. They all make a whole lot of sense, and one of the sort of innovations is that now there's one pay range for all of the positions in that level of responsibility. Because, you know, you could say that everybody's job is different and we'd have 20 different grades, and that isn't really practical. So he looked at the number of our positions and what they were, and thought that 6 was a good number of grades that easily distinguished between what the levels of responsibility are. He went back and he changed the ambulance director, because it's not as major a position as it would be if it were a full-time
Yeah, because I
department.
read that original one and said,
Yeah.
oh, that's way,
Yeah.
you couldn't get anybody that had the qualifications in the county to apply for that.
You know, he you know, went
He
back
changed
and,
it,
and redid that. And so what he's going to, you can refer back to the human resources policies piece that I did last time to see sort of where we are and what the decisions are that he's looking for. And he will have, besides these are more my concerns. You know, what do we do about the information for the coming year? Do we want to make changes the coming year? And if we do, this is what this would cost, this is what this would cost, all that sort of thing.
Right. He's gonna have numbers for us, basically.
Yeah, and well, I think you already got those as part of the packet too. Those numbers aren't going to change for the hiring for the salary ranges and the sort of comparable town minimum, comparable town maximum.
He's gonna bring the whole package to us, right?
Yeah. Oh, he will bring more.
Did we get
than
to see
you
what,
ever
how each position
wanna
was evaluated and
read.
compared, and It'd be interesting to see how we stand in the county.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a point system. I can. It might be good to identify all of those questions that you have, and get, sort of, if you want to get down into the weeds, we can do that outside of the general meeting, because he's going to have more than enough to go over.
Yeah.
What he's going to propose is a method for calculating, providing compensation. And it's a method that takes into account a number of factors. Number of years in the position, performance evaluations that we're finally going to be able to do now that we have consistent job descriptions. And the Personnel Committee, I will reiterate, if I didn't say it last time, I'll tell you now, is split on the question of, do we have regular steps, or is it solely merit-based? The public sector typically uses steps for some years of service. Now in Northfield, they give you a step every 2 years instead of every 1 year, and that gives you a 20-year span for 10 steps of maxing out into whatever that salary range is. And there's a good argument for doing it. It's simple, everybody can understand it, and it just, there it is, and once you institute it, you don't have to worry about anything. Don is saying, well, you might want something like that to get people into the salary range who aren't there now, or up to a certain level. At that point, what you want is your compensation to reflect your comparable towns, which is a market-based approach to it. This is what these people are making, rather than having some system that other towns may go faster than or slower than. So that will be what he is advocating for. If we had one of our members of the Personnel Committee, they would say, okay, that's based on something other than simply merit and performance evaluations, and therefore I don't like it. And the other one would say, well, that's not based on steps, therefore I don't like it. So he managed to try to go right down the middle, and it demands attention. It would demand administration. And speaking of reorganization, I am continuing to ask the assistant treasurer collector to help out in HR, which is good. She has variable hours working for the treasurer collector, so this would help even out her work schedule, and the money's there. So just letting you know, that's another reorganization I'm instituting. So that's a heads up as to what he's going to say, and he's going to let you know what he defines as competitive salaries,
Good. Sure.
which is his focus. So that's really all I have to say, except I'm going to postpone that because of the special town meeting.
Okay. Good. All right, next item is to appoint alternative members of the Agricultural Commission.
Of which we have one.
Right. Susan Schroeder. And she's been recommended by?
The co-chairs of the Ag Commission.
Okay. Both co-chairs have recommended Susan Schroeder.
Yes, she, a little bit about her. She has been involved with the Ag Commission since June, when it was reconstituted. She's attended all the meetings, though she has not wanted to become a full member. She did attend the statewide Agricultural Commission boot camp with both Will and Jason, and is particularly interested in the ethical treatment of animals in agriculture, having kept horses herself. She's lived in town for many years and is now on Maggie Bean Road.
I was going to say she's up on Maggie Bean.
Okay. Any
We
other
appear
questions?
to be getting more, don't we appear to be getting heavily weighted in the Ag Commission on non-farming people than, we went down to one or two people that actually run some sort of farm in town on that commission, and The rest are not farming people at all?
Well, David said he'd be willing to get back on it once things were settled.
We're down, now we're
Yeah.
down to just Jason and.
Yeah, and again, this is as an alternate member. She is not interested in being a full member. So what this means is when there is not a quorum, she can vote. When there's a quorum, she can't vote.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Well, it'd be good
Alright.
for him to be able to do that.
Yeah, it will allow him to move forward when there's,
Yeah.
you know.
Okay.
Of course, we all know what's happening in the farming in Conway. I mean, we're down to one existing farm in Conway now. The other one just went out 2 months ago. We don't know if you knew that now.
Which one?
The Holy Farm.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Right,
It's our only active farm in Conway now is the Boyden Brothers.
Yeah.
right,
Caleb told me that.
The dairy, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Well,
Right.
Boyden Brothers and David Fisher.
Yeah, he's different type of, yeah.
Yeah, but he's a farmer.
He's all farm, yes.
He's a farmer.
Yeah. He's the only elected one, right? That's right, I forgot about him.
All right, well, based on the recommendation of the co-chairs of the Agricultural Commission, I'll make a motion that we appoint Susan Schroeder as an alternative member. of the
Alternate.
An alternate member of the Agricultural Commission for a term ending June 30th, 2016.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Right.
And we also have a certificate, we voted last week for, to appoint Brian Kosmaskis to the Capital Improvements Planning Committee, ending June 30th, 2016. And I'll just sign that since we voted on it last week.
Right. Good.
You know, it occurs to me that I did not hand this human resources policies out last time, so I'll just say, if you can read it carefully,
Yeah,
it gives you several options and several arguments, pros and cons for each option, and my recommendations at the bottom. Shelburne, I'll note, has also accepted, he did work for Shelburne, and they accepted his proposal for how to move forward.
Right.
And so if you want any information about how it's working out for them, please call Shelburne. And Terry Narkowitz is back as town administrator. She'd been out for some time. And she's now back, so you can talk to her or any of the selectmen who went through that process with him. So I'd encourage you to read this and talk to them before he comes as well.
I've spoken to the selectmen up there. They were pleased with his recommendation. So,
Good.
yeah. Okay, any items not anticipated 48 hours in advance of the meeting? Okay, none. Administrator update. Tom, do you have anything for us?
Pretty brief. I've been running around doing a lot of little tiny things, just a whole lot of them. So, just departmental news right now. The highway superintendent, that would be Ron, and Dana Goodfield took the inoperable pickup truck to auction today and put a $4,000 minimum on it, which is substantially larger than the $3,000 we decided to forgo in insurance benefits. So that should be worth it for us. I've written Representative Kulik's aid regarding the North Poland Road Bridge that is in substandard condition and requested an earmark for the project. Since I wrote this, I got a reply saying they really don't do many earmarks these days, but they're going to help us look for some kind of funding somewhere, even though the next transportation plan is years away. The timing is somewhat delicate, as we do have some Chapter 90 money reserved for an engineering study for the bridge, but we don't want to spend that before we know funding will be available, as we want to be sure the engineering plans don't expire. I expect to be talking with his aide, Paul Dunphy, about it soon. I also noted to him that Charlemont has had 3 bridges closed in the last 4 months.
Wow.
So the overall problem is clearly substantial and needs state attention.
I guess.
It's not really all about us, and we might actually get more done more quickly if we work as a region here on this problem.
Sure.
There had been a question about having certified mechanics work on our trucks for insurance purposes. I asked our insurer, who assures us that they are not concerned about that.
They assure us that they're not concerned about it.
Yes.
So if one of our trucks got in an accident
It
because the
wouldn't,
brakes failed,
it wouldn't matter whether the
And-
mechanic was certified or not.
you got to be kidding me. Because we were always led to believe that if you were going to do brake work in the state of Massachusetts through the DOT, you better have a certified mechanic do the brake work. Or if you get in an accident caused from brake failure and they can prove that the guy wasn't state certified,
Well, there may be certain functions that actually need a certified mechanic. Some
Yeah,
of which may
and
not.
I may not have specified brakes, so I'll go back to him about that.
yeah. I know when I was there, I sent Ron himself to a brake school in Deerfield, certified brake school in Deerfield.
Maybe he's certified. We will need to budget an additional $2,500 for a triennial end-of-year audit, which is a requirement of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. Now, this is not a full audit, which is the $13,000 audit that we already have planned for fiscal year 16.
Right.
But I am in conversations with Patty Kavanaugh, the business manager of the district, about whether we should have a $2,500 end-of-year audit for fiscal year 15, which would be our normal third year, apparently. This is something that just came up and they have made mandatory, and now what happens is that we would lose access to funds for certain purposes. She's unsure that any of those purposes apply to Conway, so we might not actually lose any money if we didn't do it. One of them is schooling for homeless children. So we apparently don't have any homeless children who we are schooling. So we would be getting money for that if we filled out this audit. We won't get it if we don't fill it out, but we don't have any, so
Right.
will it hurt us to go and just fold it into the fiscal year 16 audit that we have decided that we were going to go
I'm
for
surprised
anyway?
that this Frontage School District doesn't build that into their budgets.
Well, this would certainly be for the, I think
For
this
the
would be the one
grammar
that
school.
covers the grammar school, yeah, the town school.
What have we done in the past with this?
I don't know.
Is this going to be an ongoing thing, you think?
Yes,
every year?
every 3 years.
Every 3
It's
years.
triennial.
Why don't we get our school to put it in their elementary school, to put it in their budget?
Well, because it's an audit for the whole town. It's a town
But
audit.
it's a school audit.
Well, the town budget includes the grammar school budget, yes. But we are the greater entity, and that greater entity needs to
I
be
would think that would
audited.
have, I just personally think that would be easier to come up with every 3 years if it was in their budget every 3 years rather than have to, we'll have to put a special article on town meeting floor for that, right?
Yes, in the future, we can include it in
the budgets, I would
in the
think.
town audit.
Or
Well, I mean, we
something.
could do it this year too, if it turns out that we can do a 2016 audit and everything will be fine. I'm waiting for her recommendation. I'm sure her recommendation is just start it off right and do an audit for 2015, an end of year audit. It's a sort of a bottom line audit. And you know, maintain your regular schedule, and it'll just be cleaner that way.
Okay.
So I am expecting to do that. So I am expecting to either I'll check in with Joyce about whether we need a separate article for it or whether it can be folded into the town audit line on the
Okay.
in Article 2.
All right, yeah. Thank you, Tom. Any concerns of the selectmen? No?
We had questions for the superintendent last week. What was the outcome of those? We had our road discussions, remember?
Right, yeah.
Which questions?
Questions about the use of winter road and sand and salt, remember? You were going to get to the highway superintendent about it? We asked to have him come in.
Oh, okay. Well, I will make a special place. I think it would be best to have him.
Probably not next week at the meeting, right?
Yeah, right. I will work on that soon. We're going to have to schedule meetings with, and probably starting the time after this with the finance committee to meet jointly. So that would probably be the best time to have all those questions answered. If you, yeah, I'm sorry, I don't recall the specific questions.
After
Well,
our
I
discussion
remember
with
there
Brian,
was one thing that Brian said about what he's using on the road, and my response to that was, having driven and walked on more of the roads than Brian does, I think it's superior to just putting sand on it.
Yeah, and that's, it is.
And this is an unusual
Standard
winter
practice
anyway.
these days. And, oh yeah, and the salt does not cause the roads to crumble. That's crumbling probably because of base issues. And there was another one, and I did get answers. And I thought I forwarded those to you, but if I didn't, I apologize, and I'll have it. But that was the one about Matthews Road. I remember now. No salt doesn't.
Was it Boyden?
Boyden.
Boyden Road. Boyden Road.
I know he mentioned Matthews.
Matthews.
Oh, he said Matthews Road was falling apart.
Well,
He
the
said
pavement
Matthews Road was
crumbling.
falling apart because of the sand, of the salt.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
that's,
down in front of,
that's not
Scudder's house.
that's not likely.
That's what he's talking
Yeah,
Oh,
and
in front of
the
Scudder's.
Yeah.
the new mix.
You know,
Ron is going.
Low place.
He had been using a mix with round stones at 1/2 inch, but he's moving to a regular gravel, which will
Crushed.
sit
It'll
better.
sit better, yeah.
Yeah, and so that should work better than the.
I know he
the
had
stuff
to
that had
haul
been
in a
there
bunch
before.
more this past week or two, so had our trucks, all stuff, so maybe he's changed the consistency of it something, or had the consistency changed.
Could be,
A little.
yeah.
We'll have to look
And
at it.
The shape.
I think the other question was one probably for the select board, which was, did you want to have him budget in a budget for salt for townspeople to take?
I would think that's all part of his budget, that's how the salt,
A certain amount.
I don't think we need to do that. I think
Well-
it's all the one budget, line on salt and sand.
It always was, but last year, they caught somebody with a truck who didn't even live in Conway loading a truck full.
Well, you have to watch for that, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
but we have townspeople who go in there and take too much.
Yeah, I think the idea is salt is so much more expensive
Yeah.
that if we wanted to set a certain
Last year, the year
amount
before.
I don't agree
aside
with that.
and track
I do
that,
not
then-
agree with that at all. I think it should be available to our townspeople, and I think it should be just,
Well, as I understand, it has not been the policy for many years that salt was given out.
we never had a policy, no, never, ever. But
Yeah, I don't
I
remember
recall
policy,
seeing
but
something in the
people
visitor
would
from a
just go
few
get
years
some
ago.
just go
salt.
get a bucket of
Yeah, people would go get some salt.
You probably need, I would
Yeah.
think we need to do put a policy together as to how much they can take.
Well, then you got to administer that.
Then you gotta
do
administer
that.
it, then you
Yeah.
got problems thrown.
And you
Yeah.
set aside that amount, yeah.
I know it was discussions a whole bunch of years ago with me when I was superintendent and this previous boards of selectmen. And at the end of it, all discussions, they said, well, let's just leave it alone the way it is.
Yeah, have we seen any signs of abuse in people taking too much salt and too
Yes.
much sand? We have.
Yeah,
Well,
for too much salt.
the policy, as I understand it, has been for several years that the salt was too expensive to be taken there. I remember there was a notice in the Visitor from several years ago that said that, and that was actually before my
Well,
time.
well the sand we give out has salt in it, has some salt in it.
Not
It's
anymore.
about 1 to 10.
Oh, it does?
Yeah, it still does. Yeah,
Okay.
still does.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say, it
mostly
used
to
have.
prevent caking.
Yeah,
Just to prevent it from freezing, that's all.
Yeah.
all right. All right, and unless Ron sees a real problem with the way it's being done now, if we change that and try to administer it, it'll be.
Blow up on us.
Yeah.
Open a can of worms.
Okay, I don't think there's any mail.
There was one piece of mail that came in that I know I got a copy of it on,
This is from our building commissioner from
Yes.
Franklin Regional Council of Governments.
The building inspection program, which we're part of, gets its fees from building inspection fees. However, they do a lot of work that's related to that they don't get paid for.
Yeah.
And that piece of mail outlines all the work that they do that they don't get paid for, which is about half of their time. So their expenses, you can probably speak to this as well as I can, their expenses far out exceed the amount that they bring in permits, so they're explaining why their assessment to the towns is what it is.
And the assessment's going up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Because of that.
they outlined everything that they
Done
do,
that in
just
the
so
past,
that
hasn't it, John?
Yeah, yeah.
so that everyone's clear on that they actually do a lot of work.
Yeah. It's not going up much, but they're gonna take out one full-timer, put some part-timers in, and it's gonna, come up to a little bit more than it is now, but they're gonna be able to cover more. So, that's what they're doing.
but the other letter was one from the church about they had agreed to host the Peace Pagoda group that came through.
We got a letter from the church.
Yeah. Yeah, from the
That
pastor.
was in last week's mail.
Yeah, it was in
last
week's
week,
mail,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
That Bob said he heard that, but it was kind of late in the thing, heard that it was happening and told them they couldn't do that because it might be a legal problem. And I said, my personal feeling was, and I talked to Bob about this, was that the churches should come under a different category. And I haven't talked to Jim or, what are their names, Jim and Jim?
Yeah, Jim and Jim.
Yeah, okay. I haven't called them.
Jim Schwarm,
But just to kind of clarify that, because it's rough to be at a place at the last minute and then be told you can't do that when other places have done it and then it gets to here.
According to Jim Sharon that I talked with, he said it's not an impossibility. It's what some of the churches in the area do. They just apply once a year for a blanket permit, like for the year. And the fire officials, the building inspector, and the Board of Health go in there and say, okay, what might you be doing? And they come up with a plan, and that's part of the permit, the plan is. And it doesn't cost them nothing, I know. I haven't heard nothing.
Yeah.
And they have that on their file, just in case they have to have somebody come in there and spend a night or two, for whatever reason.
Oh, this is for sleeping.
And
Sleeping overnight in the
Okay,
building.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I just,
So-
it concerned me because having been the pastor of the church and we hosted things
Well,
and whatever before,
I-
it kind of bothered me, and that's why I wanted to clarify.
Some people thought I overstepped my boundaries, but I don't think I did, because you know what? My requirements as fire chief, and put my other hat on now, is that you gotta obey the state laws. So I called Jim Strong to find out what the building commissioner's requirements were on that, because if there was any, because and he explained this to me and told me that this is what I should tell him, and that's what I did. And I said, I told the head of the church that it's in your ballpark. I mean, you got to assume the liability if you allow them people to stay in there without a special permit. It doesn't fall back on me. I can't give them. I could give them permit to do it, but I would have had to have time to get the building commissioner and the Board of Health together with us and do this plan that the state law says you have to do. So, and I said, at this point, this is like a late Friday afternoon. I said, there's not time enough, because the building inspectors, they're probably already gone home,
Sure, yeah.
that that could get pulled off.
It had been publicized,
If
though.
well, it had been, but I hadn't seen it, you know,
Okay.
and I didn't hear about it till 2 o'clock or so on Friday afternoon. I said, ooh, wait a minute here.
How'd you hear about it?
Somebody called my wife at the store and told her that they would asked her if she would be willing to supply food for 100 people that would be staying overnight in the church.
Right, okay.
I'll write the church and let them know that there is a process.
I explained it to her, and I would hope that in this letter that she sent, I think did she speak about the process in that letter? I don't remember.
I don't know for sure. I don't remember. I read the letter. I just don't remember the details.
Something they
She said
should
it was
do.
kind of embarrassing because they found out at the last minute that they couldn't do it after they'd agreed to.
So, do you, if you can get me information about what that process is, I can pass it on to her?
I have it. I can email you. Jim Sharon's emailed me,
Oh, great.
and you can read it.
Oh, yeah, I'll just call Jim.
And he explained it.
Okay.
Okay, good.
All right. Thanks.
Anything else on that?
I can't think of anything.
No? Okay. Okay, our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, February 8th at 6:30 p.m. in the school, just before the special town meeting. Okay?
Yep.
And thank you, Ben.